died on. It's like, that's really frustrating.
That's frustrating.
I'm just going to quickly make a note to members that we are now live in the new one. Just let everyone know my stress levels are slowly going back down again. I'm going to mark this an announcement, and I'm going to pin this to the top.
Someone get Matt a whiskey.
Oh.
Let us know when we want us to start playing and we're ready to go.
Just give us a couple of minutes to let everyone jump back in here. We are live again with the new Restream link and new YouTube link. Oh, that's frustrating.
Hey, Matt, you're probably better off turning off Morsey and I, because that's all live to everyone.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. We're all live. We're all up together. We're all just learning that we're back again. It looks like everyone's starting to tune back in again, which is great. Morsey, Wooler, thank you. I'll see you all again soon. Wooler, I'll see you for the next dram.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, lads. Thank you, Morsey. Really appreciate it.
Good on you, gang.
Okay, I'm going to turn myself off, and I'm going to leave you guys to it.
Cool.
I did have a really a big intro for you guys, but I'm all flustered from this everything falling apart on me here. I'm going to try it out here. I want to formally introduce Pocket Trio. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this live stream with us. It means a lot to us. You guys having you guys on the stream, and having you guys provide some music to members of this SMWS who are perhaps at home having a dram tonight. So, lads, I'll just say, take it away. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in a bit.
Well, here we go. This one's called "It's Love." It's an old Leonard Bernstein song. Hope you enjoy. It's love. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. was It's Love. It is Love. That's actually an arrangement that we stole, so I wish I could say that it was all ours. But there's a great New York pianist called Bill Sharlow that recorded that arrangement on one of his albums. He made an album all of Leonard Bernstein tunes. So that was a stolen arrangement. Speaking of which, we're going to play a song now. This one, I think it's by Oscar Peterson, but I could be wrong. Anyway, this song's called Gravy Waltz. Actually, no, I think it's pre-Oscar, but he made a version, which I'm influenced by. Cool. Well, I hope you're enjoying the music. Who gets it? Who gets it? Yeah. We're gonna play a song now called Ugetsu, if you'll let us.
Yeah, no, let's go for it.
You tell us when to stop. We'll just keep playing.
No, this is amazing. The feedback from members is fantastic. Let's keep going. We'll go. Let's do another song.
Great, awesome. Well, we've got infinite songs, so we'll just. Speaking of infinity, this song is called Uranus, named after the planet. Not the other thing. This one is a song. Uranus.
Let's do that one.
Yeah, let's do that. This one is by a cat called Walter Davis Jr. Who's a great American pianist, and it's an arrangement by Aaron Deal. It's a fun little tune. Quite a number. Is that cool?
Yeah.
There you get to, sorry. It's common for it to mix up. 1, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, how good a pocket trio. The comments coming through have been utterly fantastic. Thank you guys so much for your first set with the Virtual Pub 22. Ladies and gentlemen, Pocket Trio, you should absolutely check them out online. Check out everything they're doing. And thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this, for being part of the stream this evening for SNWS. We love it.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity to play jazz. We love it.
Mate, it's a Friday night gig. Why not? Yeah.
That's it.
We'll bring you back in for a second set in just a little bit on the schedule, but we're going to have our second whiskey and whiskey quiz as well, where we're giving away some whiskey, and we're hoping that the stream doesn't absolutely die on us this time, but we'll go for a second round and see how we go. So thank you so much for everything. We'll be back with Pocket Trio in just a bit. Thanks, lads.
Thank you.
Yeah, the feedback on Pocket Trio tonight has been absolutely overwhelmingly positive. So good to see so many comments coming through. If they're still listening, those three guys, there was a question that came in on our YouTube channel. There's actually lots of comments coming in. Did I hear this solo open with the lick, as in like the da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da? Okay, so it's one of those sort of jazz jokes, the lick. Okay, so one that I unfortunately know, and you hear it played on trumpet sometimes, which is why I know it. But look, I mean, we'll ask them that question when we get back. So Adams, hang around and we'll get onto that one. We're going to bring in now, of course, I'm going to show his some faces here. We have, of course, Matt Wooler joining us, who is one of our regular contributors to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. He writes for Outturn. He hosts events. He is a friend of the society. The last photo is pretty saucy, but there's a photo with him and Dr. Bill Lumsden on a boat ride, which was where I slipped over and face planted with a glass of whiskey. That's a story for another time. And I've also got a special guest member, of course, Dr. Robert Akers, who I want to get some feedback from on this next whiskey. So I'll first bring in Mr. Wooler. Thank you.
Hey,
Welcome.
pop that light back. I turned the light right down so I could just sort of listen.
Oh, you had your jazz lighting on.
Listen to music. Yeah.
Jazz
So,
light. Yeah. And
great.
Dr. Akers, welcome to the stream as well.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. We are all rocking. We're all rocking Society Live.
Yeah, mine's just out of date.
No, yours is no. There's no such thing as out of date. It's vintage.
Out of date.
It's vintage.
Yeah, vintage. Cool. I'll sell that.
Vintage, yeah.
I'll hock that with my Australian whiskey on the auction next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, bundle it all up together. It'll be fun.
A heavily used, sweaty old T-shirt. What an auction find that'd be, you know? Wow. Where do I join up?
Oh, Matt, I've seen the internet.
We are here to taste a whiskey tonight together, and we're going to go with 48.132 Tuscan Tales. It's the second whiskey in the Virtual Pub tasting kit. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize again for the disruption to the stream. Outside of our control, technical issues happen, but thank you so much for joining in. If you've already cracked this dram open, I've already let it sit in the glass whilst I was enjoying that music, and I had a little bit of dinner myself. You have a bit of dinner at the pub sometimes, so that's where I'm at, and we've poured this dram, and I wanted us to have a chat about it and your thoughts and what you've been up to.
I wanted to just mention something first. I realized that last night. Yes, we've been streaming, but you've been streaming a long time, Matt. But when it came to these, not just the Virtual Pub, but just these collective sort of things, it's pretty much been almost smack on 2 years now when this was starting really regularly for society with COVID.
Well, the daily live streams were happening throughout 2019.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But as the sort of group collective thing, COVID really forced us into it. And it's been to the benefit of our communications with members and things like that since. It just occurred to me, it must be very close to one of those first Friday night catch-ups that we started there for a while.
Yeah.
If you recall those. They were pretty hectic.
They were hectic. That's a good word for it.
Quickly stopped being a live event, those.
Yeah. I was literally having a conversation I was talking about Virtual Pub with a friend just earlier today saying, I've got a Virtual Pub tonight. And I was just saying, we used to broadcast these Friday night chats that were sort of member catch-ups during sort of COVID. And it was sort of like, everyone gets together and has a chat. And then it was like, of course, I am going to name and shame because he deserves it, but I'm going to name and shame Scott Fitzsimons, who routinely derail the chat and turned it into an absolute circus.
Absolutely. On it.
Scott was actually in the stream earlier. I don't think he's tuned in right now, but Scott, if I'm going to get Adam on our team to clip this moment where I say, you've been named and shamed. So there you go. I told you I'd get you back at some point, but this isn't even the start of it, so don't worry about it. Look, guys, I just wanted to have it like this is like Matt was saying. You know, it's one of those things where it changes over time and it evolved. This has evolved. We're doing virtual pub now, and it's a lot more slick, but a lot more entertaining and a lot more sort of fun and just the color of what we like to enjoy with tuning with members.
Yep, absolutely.
Production value. That's what you're bringing to the table.
Production value, indeed. Yes. That is a very different whiskey. I've just had a nose on a very cool
Okay, yeah. Look, for everyone, you have to prime yourself on this whiskey. No question.
Yep.
Like from the nose through to the taste, just have a sip and just get your palate going, because it is assertive, is an understatement for how this will attack your palate to begin with. And then once that's happening, let it settle down, and then we can really start looking at the nose and the taste and everything that goes with that. The name itself, Tuscan Tales, Tuscany, Italy. Does the name relationship really work? I'm not sure from my point of view. I get it, and I get the Pinocchio connection that's going on with this. But it falls into the spicy and sweet category.
I think very deservedly in this case. Very deservedly.
Yeah, and the spiciness is very, very obvious. Now, with the previous whiskey that we had, I would almost say that could almost fall into this as well, but the spices were not there. But this thing is like super obvious. 17-year-old, first fill bourbon cask, 60.5%. It's pretty high. And just with the first fill bourbon cask, again, we're talking about much more intense flavors coming from the cask, because, of course, the influence of what was in their previously has not been diluted in any way.
Did you say previous Italy?
Previously.
Oh, like Italy, like Tuscan Tales.
Yeah, well, I was trying to link that up.
Okay, yeah, no, I got that word. That's a really nice. By the way, I just have to shout out Darren Howie, one of our more northern members. For a Tablet 2 user, the SMWS, Matt, and everyone loves better for the efforts. I really appreciate that, Darren. It's just about the enjoyment of whiskey in the club, as however we enjoy it, whether it be in person, at home, at a pub, wherever we are, or a virtual pub in this case, is what it's all about. And that's just about the community that we've got going on here.
Yeah.
And Dave says, wow, so much going on with this stream. There really is. I've noticed it 3 times now, and I'm getting 3 very different profiles.
Yep. And I'll get to the finish on it, the ultimate finish on it, which is totally extreme as well. Speyside whiskey. Not that we necessarily talk about the distilleries themselves, but this is coming from Belmanac. Now, that's a name that a lot of people probably heard, but they're not hearing it.
No one knows that name.
They're not hearing it from the distillery itself, because the distillery doesn't necessarily release anything under their own label. That said, independent bottlers actually do quite a lot of work with whiskies from this distillery. And of course, this distillery is extremely sought after for blending, mainly because it's a worm tub whiskey. So worm tubs give it that really meaty, rich flavor. For those that don't know that much about the worm tubs themselves, it's a more traditional way, if you want to call it that, of cooling the spirit as it's coming off the still. It's a long process. It's a big, long tube. It starts out quite thick. It gets thinner and thinner as it goes down through a big water cooler, effectively. It's so big most of the time the worm tubs sit outside of the distillery. I like to think that it's just the Scottish being a little bit thrifty with the free water that rains down from outside, but that's not really the case. These things are just so big.
There'd be an element of thrift in there. There's definitely an element of thrift.
It's with the chilling, with the outside and with the
that's exactly ambient temperature. I'm surprised they don't actually just run it through the streams. They all talk about the streams so much. Our natural water running through outside, drawing from the streams. Like run your still tubes down there then. But in comparison to sort of like shell and tube condensers, which many of you probably have seen but not actually know what's going on inside of them. These are just big tubes with a whole lot of smaller tubes inside of them of copper tubes, effectively for cooling, copper and sometimes stainless steel. But shorter contact with copper, cooling process is much quicker, but of course it doesn't give you this deliberate contact with the copper over a long period of time through cooling. And that is what effectively the worm tubs are all about. Matt, you can probably comment how many worm tubs are actually still around in Scotland. There isn't that many, is there? 3 or 4?
No. It's closer to 11 or 12. Like it's
Right,
still maybe a dozen or so distilleries that use worm tubs as condensing methods.
Yep.
It's not better or worse than shell or tube. It's just different. It just provides less copper contact, so it provides a more sulfuric spirit.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's one of those things that they tend to look for, is that sulfur aspect to a degree that might come with it.
Great tasting note here from David Gilks, who says this needs a touch of water, but it's great. Nutmeg. Yes, that's the note I was trying to pick out. And creamy nuts, followed by panforte and candied fruits. I was getting nutmeg on the nose. Yeah, I see what
rich and fruity is tends to be what I would classify the flavor profiles I get out of it. Just having to think here for a sec.
It's more ginger than nutmeg for me, but
more ginger than nutmeg. Yeah. And what else are you getting on the nose, Rob?
It's complex.
It
is. There's a lot going on.
Christmas spices, I'll call it, like that sort of like
cloves maybe.
Clove, yep.
Yeah.
I get a lot of those old pear sort of flavors, a little bit like my son after he leaves his fruit in his school bag for like 4 days, 5 days. But
it's the smell of primary school, Matt.
Yeah, smell of primary school. That's it. That's
bananas and pears in the bottom of the bag.
Probably not bananas. I won't say bananas for this one. Quite sweet, almost like a bit of a decay smell to it. I would say sweet decay, white sugars, red jelly crystals, stuff like that for me.
That spirit sulfur is really well integrated though through the worm tub process. Though it gives just enough body to it without being overpowering.
Well, it's 17 years in a first fill as well.
Yeah, like it's going to mellow out a bit, isn't it?
It's going to have the cask is going to take on a lot of that profile.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
imagine what it was like at about 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, it would have been fun.
Yes.
That would have been a fun whiskey. I've talked about this before.
That'd take a drop of water.
I've actually added a drop of water to mine. You mentioned that about what it tastes like at 6 or 7, and it's like I'm a huge fan of like young whiskeys with like spirit driven but not new makey. It's like whiskeys that don't taste fainty or new makey and actually taste mature but perform really well. And you know what? There's a whiskey coming out soon from us that's a 7-year-old from Distillery 52, and it's an upcoming release from the same stable of distilleries as this one. It's in the same group, the Inverhouse group. So we've got some. We do get some great casks through from the Inverhouse distilleries. But the thing that fascinates me about 48s is that it doesn't have a core range, this distillery. There's no sort of like, superstar profile to it, but the whiskeys that they are just singing here. Bananas is Distillery 148. Yeah, well, it certainly used to be a lot more. And it's certainly the banana profile of that Distillery 148 has definitely changed over time, and it's become a lot more grain driven, if that makes sense, in a good way. Like it's evolved. Banana notes in a whiskey are often related to the ferment rather than the distillation process. But that's another one.
I'd almost pick up
orchard fruits, isn't it? Yeah.
What would you say? Rhubarb and horseradish, like in those spices.
Corbin says
getting a bit of Vincotto as well, I think.
Multi milks and milk arrowroot biscuits. Thank you, Corbin. By the way, big shout out to our WA members who started drinking at 4 p.m. with us. If you got a chance, because it's a few hours behind, but really appreciate it.
That's Friday. Come on.
Lots of spice prickle on the taste. It's really it hits the back of your not the back of your throat. It hits your chest and it hits your palate really, really hard to begin with. But third or fourth sip in, it's really calmed down on the palate.
It's funny what you said here, Darren, about worm tub sulfur being desirable trait. Yeah, I'd argue that's correct, and yet ex-sherry cask sulfur is an undesirable trait, and that is very. I mean, they're very, very different, and one is derived through copper contact and distillation method, and one is derived from candles being used to disinfect. And so but sulfur candles are very much a thing of the past these days, and it's not really a thing you see anymore. So we see less and less cask sulfur, thankfully. However, it does still exist, and the reason why I'd say it's not always undesirable. In fact, I do know people who love cask sulfur profile. who love those really sort of sulfury casks.
Yeah.
They like them.
I can't do it.
Yeah, or they have a blind
Yeah.
spot to it, and they don't pick it up, and not everyone picks up on sulfur, and that's it. The thing that blows my mind is that like the reason why that's desirable versus undesirable would be that spirit sulfur often carries that rich, nutty, cured meats thing going on, whereas like cask sulfur often carries that sort of like burning steel or rotten egg kind of thing going on. And I get cask sulfur notes right in the top of the sinus. Like that's a sinus note for me. It's like right in like it's headache water for me.
It doesn't leave.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's each to their own. But
well,
yeah.
What is it? The Craigellickie's worm tubs, isn't it?
Yeah, they use worm tubs.
Yep.
Malt
And
lab,
the last couple of Craigellickie's that have come through with Society, they just taste like bile to me, reflux. Like I really cannot. Like it's just whatever is going on with what they do in Society bottlings in particular is when it comes to Society bottlings doesn't work for me at all. I can appreciate what it is, the quality of it, absolutely, but it really hits my palate in a very awful way.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
The finish on this, dry as, super dry,
very dry.
In my opinion,
it's not what I expected. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It had it was far more I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect this out of this. I enjoy it, but it's so far removed from where I was expecting it to go in some ways.
It's a little bit like
those melon notes forward. Sorry, Matt.
Oh no. Like just in what I get in the palate versus the nose. The nose, you get all those fruits. In the palate, the fruits seem to sort of disappear, and I'll end up with reminiscing old dusty school shoes, sort of like this dusty leather.
So back to the schoolyard again, Matt.
Back to the schoolyard again. I'll just go sniff my son's school bag. You know, I'll get the same experience.
That's cool and normal. You should definitely do that.
It's an endorsement.
Yeah.
Now,
that's
a
Society bottling name right there. Sniffing a school bag. There you go. That's a Society bottling name.
That's okay.
Yeah,
well, it's so better than the selling notes. Yeah.
That could also scream like pedophile or something like that.
Not like that, you moron. And on that note, Rob, what do you think of the? Give us a palate and finish on this kind of whiskey.
Oh, the palate I find is like Matt. It's quite different than the nose. The spices are coming on thick and fast, and it's ginger and nutmeg, and then those candied apples are still in there, and I'm getting this note of Vin Cotto through it as well, and it lingers on the palate so well. I've just added a bit of water to it as well, and it just freshens it up a bit. It takes some of that spice heat off, but it's still spice on the palate and fruit on the nose. I want to spend a lot of time with this one actually, Matt.
Well, you can park it. I mean, there's some great comments coming through as well. Gary from Tassie says we need Ali Byland to explain how it's pronounced. He's talking about how Ali says Craigellickie, because that's always fun to hear a New Zealander say that word. And completely changes a drop of water. Yes, some people have added water to this. It is 60-something%, 60.
Yeah, 60.5.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's held up. Oh, man, it's held up after 17 years.
It doesn't drink as that high though on the undiluted palate. I got to say.
Who's choosing the name for these bottles? It's the tasting panel, and I get wax and oats, and lots of cool
wax. Okay.
See, I get that little bit of not pencil shavings, but wood dust. I get that element of it, and that wood dust combined with the old leather concept. That's where I get these old leather school shoes, dusty school shoes. It's really, if you go into old woodworking shops, and especially cobblers, things like that, you go into cobblers as well, is this smell and this the taste, I mean, not the smell, the taste is very reminiscent of that for me. For sure. So that's how I get that Pinocchio connection that's going on here, this Tuscan Tales concept. I when I first read it, it didn't connect, and then after tasting, it's like, okay, right, I know what they're talking about now. I assume that's what they're talking about. I don't think they actually say what.
You've got in the tasting notes, prosciutto melon balls as well, which is a very
nice. Okay, well there you go. Yeah. Now the thing is, this is for everyone, is don't pour your next whiskey into the glass when you finish this. I want you to let it dry out just a little bit, go back and nose it, and all I get out of that is red cherries, like just red cherries. And that is not in the palate. It's not on the nose. But like many things, after you've had that whiskey and you wake up in the morning and whatever was left in it has dried out, and you get that little ring around the bottom of the glass, and you go and nose the glass. And some whiskeys, you get this amazing smell out of it. It's like, why the hell didn't it taste like that last night? This, just let it dry out for 5-10 minutes. For me, red cherries all the way through, nothing else, just red cherries. It's pretty cool.
I'm going to do that, Matt.
Awesome. I mentioned before, we need to move into the whiskey quiz section in just a moment. But I'm going to make one more mention for those who've just tuned in. There's the advent calendar we're giving away tonight. I'm going to pick someone out. I guess we'll pick it out tomorrow. But if you join up in Society, use the code VirtualPub, you get $40 off any membership type, and you go in the draw to win this advent calendar valued at $3.99. This is one of those kind of membership specials that only exists for like tonight. As in, like, this is one of the biggest membership specials we've ever run. Now, we're also running one for Chinese New Year at the moment, which has been very popular with new members coming in. So welcome everyone who's just joined. At the same time, however, we are giving away other prizes. As I said, post your photo in the group of your home tasting setup to go in the draw to win a SMWS hip flask. But also the whiskey quiz is now coming up. So I'm going to actually say thank you to Dr. Akers. Thank you to Mr. Wooler. We'll bring Mr. Wooler back in just a moment, of course. But we are going to go back to, oh, no, I've gone too far. One more photo of Wooler. Wait, there he is. Okay.
Oh, God, where do you get these from?
Well,
I got some good ones of you.
I know. You sent them to me before. That's enough. I didn't post any embarrassing photos. Don't worry. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to host the whiskey quiz in just a second. So happy virtual pub to you both. Thank you for jamming on with.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And Mr. Will, I'll see you in a moment. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Akers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good weekend. Okay, here we go. It's whiskey quiz time. It is time for the whiskey quiz. Okay, how this is going to work, if you're watching along tonight and you win, then you get sent that bottle of 148.2 Kirsch Me Quick. The bottle is literally here in my office. It's a sealed bottle of 148.2. You'll be the first to have it, and it's valued at $210. We're going to send this to someone who wins the whiskey quiz tonight. Probably one of our biggest prize giveaways on any live stream, which is rather cool. So I'm going to give that away tonight. Now, the way it works, really simple, is I'm going to post the question. I'm also going to read it out. Most of them are multiple choice. There's one or two that aren't. So it's just going to be first in to answer the question. I encourage you to answer the question as in don't write A, B, C, or D. You have to actually spell it out. So if the answer to a question is, say, which distillery in Islay starts with A, and you say the answer is, is it A, Kalila, B, Ardbeg or something, then you have to write Ardbeg. So I want to make that really clear. You have to actually answer the question, and it's just first in, best dressed. So first person to post the answer in the stream, as in like on the comments. Now you can be commenting on YouTube, Facebook group, or Facebook page. They all come in simultaneously onto the screen. I'm going to bring up the chat thread here, the overlay, so we can all keep it nice and transparent. We can see who's going to win this. Okay, I'm going to bring in the questions. Here we go. This is the whiskey quiz. It's first to win, the first person to get their answer in, the correct answer in, and then the person who answers the most questions correct will take home the prize. And question here, first of all, from Ian, I'm up for renewal. Look, Ian, you'll be up for, I'll pop you in the drawer as well. That's fine. And some great comments coming in about that whiskey itself from Dan Godden as well. Amit Patnaik, so many great names coming in. All right, let me bring up the questions here. Question number 1 of the whiskey quiz tonight, and someone is going to take home. Here we go. I've put the word giveaways on the screen. Here it goes. Okay, multiple choice. It's first in best journalist answers and grand prize to win the most correct answers. Okay, here we go. Keeping the chat screen up there. I think it's all working. Here we go. People are answering Brooklady before it's. I haven't even asked a question yet. Okay, hold on. Darren, it's not Brooklady. The answer's not Brooklady. Okay, question number 1. Here we go. Which distillery was bottled by the Society as a single malt before the distillery itself bottled it as a single malt? Is it Distillery 2, Distillery 10, Distillery 61, or Distillery 124? 2, 10, 61, 124. Which distillery was bottled by the society as a single malt before the distillery? Leyland, yes, Leyland wins with 61. That is correct. First one in. That's correct. It was, in fact, Distillery 61. It was bottled by the society as a single malt before the distillery ever bottled as a single malt. So we've actually been innovating in that regard for some decades, which is really exciting. Lots of answers coming in. Ooh, some people came in also with 124. That's not correct. Distillery 10 is not correct either. Distillery 2 is not correct, but it was, in fact, Distillery 61. So that was the first question. I've got to keep a score sheet here. You guys can keep me honest. Come on. Leyland, there we go. You're on 1. Okay, question number 2 coming up. Here we go. Some of these questions are going to be easier or harder than others, but you've got to be quick off the mark. You can answer on YouTube, group, or page. If you are a member, you'll be sent a bottle of 148.2 for winning. If you're not a member, I'll do you a really good special on a membership, of course. Okay, here we go. Number 2. We've had Steph Russell for Virtual Pub number 1 performing. We've got Pocket Trio for this one. But which blues artist played on Virtual Pub number 2? Jiffy Barnes. Julian James. Andrew Moat. That's a point for Andrew Moat. He's first in. You can see it on the screen there. Julian James is correct. I was expecting the views on the old stream to suddenly shoot up. Old mate. Yeah, old mate. Otis Redding is not the answer either. But yeah, we had Steph Russell for Virtual Pub number 1. We've got Pocket Trio for this one. But in the middle, we had a great Virtual Pub about 6 months ago with Julian James performing the blues artist. Worth checking out his music. He's fantastic. Andrew Moat, that's a point for you. Noted down. Okay. We're going to move on to the next question. Here's the next question. Question number 3. Someone's going to win something. If there's a tie break, then I'll work something out. Okay. Question number 3. How many different non-single malt spirit codes do we have at the society? Is it 7, 8, 9, or 10? So like code C or code R. Matt Wooler is straight off the mark. Fastest trigger right there. It is in fact 8, and he got it straight away. Nicely done, Matt Wooler. I saw it on the screen first. You can scroll up and see through the stream yourself. 8 is correct. 8 is correct. I saw Matt Wooler's answer first. No bias here. You can see it. Where is it? Here you go. There it is. I'll just quickly show you. So I've got full transparency. He was first off the mark. You can scroll through, and I can take screenshots if you want, but it's right there. So Matt Wooler, that's 1 point for you as well. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is going to be tricky. I can feel it already. Okay, so here we go. Next question. So we started with a question about codes, question about Virtual Pub, question about different non-single malt spirit codes that we bottle. Okay, here is insider trading only carries a small sentence. Yeah, it's like a 3 months in the slammer or something, Darren. He doesn't even know these questions at all. Like, it's great. Okay, next question. Here we go. A bit of a geeky question. Here we go. Peated whiskey gets its flavor by being imbued with a set of compounds known as cresols, hypernols, petanols, or phenols. So peated whiskey gets its flavor by being imbued with a set of compounds known as cresols, hypernols, petanols, or phenols. David Gilks, first off the mark. David Gilks. That's a point to you, Mr. Gilks. Congratulations. If you said phenols, you are correct. I thought that question would be harder. I've got some serious malt nerds going on in here. Petanol? No, I don't think that's the correct answer. Did spell check replace phenols with petanol? You can see from the screen, it is indeed phenols. And David Gilks, well done. That was you were quickest off the mark there. It is in phenols indeed. Okay, this is probably an easy one because these questions are obviously far too easy. Okay, here we go. I have to make the next set of questions even harder. Okay, YouTube's updating faster than Facebook, it says. Perhaps it is. I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be going out simultaneously. And I thought YouTube was always faster than Facebook, actually. Anyway, I can't control the powers that be of these platforms. Yeah, you probably don't need multiple choice for that one. In fact, I'm going to actually kill off the... I'm just going to quickly edit out the multiple choice to this next question. Otherwise, it's going to be way too easy. Okay, here we go. Which malt whiskey distillery in Scotland has the tallest stills? First in, best dressed. Here we go. And some background music for this one. Which malt whiskey distillery? Mark Teague. Mark Teague has said Glenmorangie, and that is correct. Glenmorangie is correct. Glenmorangie. Ali, you're right behind him on that one. You are so correct as well. Mark Walshaw says Glenfarclas. That is incorrect. It is Glenmorangie. Matthew Namer says Glenfarclas. Got my Glens wrong. That's okay. That's okay. It's a bit of fun, and I hope that we've got Leyland with a point, Moat with a point, Matt Wooler with a point, David Gilks with a point, Mark Teague with a point. So that's the first 5 questions already knocked over out of 10. So we better start getting some. Although I can't give away 10 prizes, but I might have some other things to give away. Okay, so here we go. I reckon someone's saying that YouTube's faster than Facebook's faster than Glen Bailey is not correct. Cool sounding distillery though. Okay, but anyway, here we go. I might actually take out. I'm going to take out. Yeah, you know what? Some of these multiple choice are way too easy. So here we go. Next question. 2022 is a special anniversary year for the SMWS in Australia. How many years will we be celebrating later this year? So 69 is not correct. 20, Scott Brickhill. Scott Brickhill, that is, you are first in. That was the first 20 to come in. Scott Brickhill, well done. That is 1 point. Again, we are spreading it wide here. Anyone who said 20 years of the Australian branch this year is correct. 2022 is 20 years of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society in Australia. If you'd read my February column in Outturn that came out today, the answer was right there. So look, it is 20 years of the SMWS in Australia this year. We're really looking forward to this year ahead. So it's 40 years next year for the entire club for the UK. So, but it's 20 years for the little Australian branch that was founded in 2002 by John Rourke and Andre Tamas. So really exciting. 1 billion years is not correct either. So we'll keep pressing on. We're up to question number 7 out of 10 here. So here we go. Ooh, I got to keep this. I'm going to take out again the multiple choice in this next one. It's otherwise it's way too easy. Okay, next question is: which Scottish distillery is arguably the oldest working distillery in operation? Arguably, that word is quite crucial here. So, which Scottish distillery is arguably the oldest working distillery in operation today? See if anyone can throw that one out there. Ali Barner. Ali, first off the mark with Glen Turret. That is 1 point to Ali. Well done, Ali. That was very good. Well played. And only very quick off the mark there. And followed closely by Scott Brickhill, Mal, Mark, Leyland. You said Glenfarclas. That's not correct. It's not Auchentoshan either. It is indeed. The answer is, of course, Glen Turret. Glen Turret is correct. That is arguably the oldest working distillery in Scotland, also known to some members as Code 16. Am I getting that right? It is 16. Yeah, I can't remember all the codes off the top of my head. I do try to. I'm going to keep this one. This next one, question 8, I'm going to keep as multiple choice because I think it's funny. Okay, well, I'm going to answer that question. Andrew Moe asks, why is it arguably? It's because record keeping back then wasn't very good, and some distilleries will claim that they were operating as a distillery before Glen Turret. Which the year of Glen Turret, off the top of my head, is something like 1722 or something. Anyway, but they'll argue that they were operating before then, but then record keeping shows it was probably a brewery before then or something like that instead. So it wasn't actually a distillery. So it's the oldest working distillery in operation. And some distilleries were operating before they got permission from the taxman to be a distillery. And so therefore, does that mean that they were a legal working distillery? Some distilleries were operating for 30 or 40 years before they were a legal distillery. Does that mean they were, anyway? So there's lots of things here. Yeah, because distilleries lie. It's true. Like they like to say every distillery. The thing is, every distillery likes to have their sort of, Scotland's first something or Scotland's oldest distillery or Scotland's most, most sherry distiller, whatever. There's always something they like to, make as their unique selling point, which they don't need to have, but they just need to make good whiskey. Okay. First in, best dressed on this next question is the term whiskey is actually the anglicised shortening of the Gaelic Uisgebetha. What did Uisgebetha mean? Did it mean A, water of life, B, golden spirit, C, unicorn's blood, or D, medicinal magic? Gary HN. Gary Harris, this is well done. That is 1 point to you, sir. You were first off the mark to say water of life. It was indeed correct. Water of life. Jay Davis, it is not golden spirit, sorry. The answer is Uisgebetha translates to water of life, and I think you'll agree with me that whiskey is the water of life, of course. See how we're going at the moment. Okay. We have 2 more questions. Okay, and then we, I think after that, after the 2 more questions, we've got, let me just double check this. Yeah, we've got the next set from Pocket Trio coming up in just a moment. So I'll see how those guys are traveling, and we'll jump in with them after the last 2 questions coming up. 10-way tie coming up. It seems that way, doesn't it? I really thought this would be a bit easier. Okay. Okay, I'm just quickly taking out the multiple choice in this one because, again, way too easy a question. We've got some serious malt nerds in here tonight, and that's cool. I didn't know. You got to find that balance point, I guess. The last question is pretty tricky, actually. Okay, here we go. The next question is, most Scotch whiskey is double distilled. However, which Scotch whiskey is distilled 2.81 times? Most Scotch whiskey is double distilled. Which distillery in Scotland distills 2.81 times? Their strange distillation. Ali Barno with Mortlach, first in. Ali is currently right at the front of the queue now. She is right at the front of winning 148.2. I can't believe that. Wait, are you changing your guess, Ali, to Springbank? What does that mean? I don't know. You wrote Mortlach, which was correct. 2.81 times distilled is definitely Mortlach. Ali, are you changing your guess? That has to go to the next person then if you're changing your guess. Or are you saying no Springbank to Davis's Springbank? Redraw. Wow. Ali, we have to hear from you on this. We have to see if you were... whoops, no. Okay. You can hold on to that too then, because, yeah, you got 2 at the moment. You got 2. You got Glen Turret and you got Mortlach. Okay. I hope you don't get the pitchforks after you on that one. All right, here we go. The next question is the 10th and final question in this quiz. Don't listen to Davis; he's leading you astray. Yeah, he's doing a good job of it as well. Okay, the next question is the 10th and final question. This one is a little bit trickier, I hope, but it's not multiple choice. It's just you've got to answer one of the 3 on this one. There's 3 answers to this question. If you answer one of them, it's the answer. I'm not looking for all 3. Let me just clarify. This next question has 3 different answers. The first person to answer one of them correctly is the winner on this one. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Masataka Taketsuru, the father of Japanese whiskey, learnt his craft in Scotland at 3 distilleries. Name just one of them. Frog is not correct. Ben Nevis is not technically correct. Mark Teague says Longmorn, and Longmorn is correct. Mark Teague, Longmorn is correct. So, Masataka Taketsuru, the father of Japanese whiskey, learned his craft in Scotland at 3 distilleries. If you'd said Longmorn, you were correct. If you'd said Hazelburn, you would have been correct. If you'd said Bowness Distillery, you would have also been correct. One of those 3 is, all those 3 distilleries are the correct answers. He learnt at all 3 of those, and the question was name one of them. And if you said Longmorn, you are correct. So that's a tie between Mark Teague and Ali Barner for 2 full answers each. So congratulations to you both. I will work out how to split this prize with you both in a message. We'll work this out because I've got one bottle of 148.2 to give away. And of course, maybe I send it to you and you put it into Dram Club for in Tassie, if I'm even allowed to say that club exists. But either way, that was really exciting. You can split it if you want. Yeah, I'd really love it if you did. That'd make my life a whole lot easier. But it's that was a that was a really good quiz, and obviously way too easy. And now I know that for the next whiskey quiz we do, I will just I'll make the questions so incredibly niche and difficult that even the most hardened malt nerds won't pick up on it. That leads us into Pocket Trio Part 2. I'll see where these guys are at. I'll just give them a quick buzz. Before I do, we are just bring Matt Willer back into the stream. We're going to have a chat. See, just whilst fill a bit of gap before Pocket Trio join us for a second set.
Oh, thanks. I'm a gap filler.
You are not a gap filler. You're
thanks.
just you bump into people at the pub and you have a chat. This is what virtual pub is. Like, hey man, you ready for the next set from Pocket Trio? It's like, yeah, we are. So see how we're going. That was good. Honestly, that was way too. There were too many hardened malt nerds in that.
Well, when you're asking numbers, you've just got to type a number in. It doesn't matter what. It's just like, okay, 8, done.
Yeah,
that's it.
So okay, fair enough. So I'm going to be sending that bottle of 148.2. I'll work it out with those two. Of course, 148.2 is in this month's outturn. Today's outturn. You can hold your phone near your screen right now and use that QR to join the ballot. I'll make it a bit bigger for you. Boom. So just hold that. There you go. There's your ballot to join it. Pause the video here if you want, but I wouldn't pause it because then you'll miss out on Pocket Trio. We're going to bring the lads back in on Trio just now. Let's see.
That's for the Aussie whiskey, yeah.
Yeah, 148.2. Curse me quick.
Yeah.
Where are
Not
we?
everyone knows the numbers.
No, it's all about the numbers. It's all numbers.
We got new people here.
Yeah, well, we've got lots of people here.
Got new people here.
Good luck to everyone entering the ballot. Yep, good call. Pocket Trio, let's see how these guys are going along here.
Hello.
Hey, lads, how are we?
Yeah.
Round 2, set 2. I'm really looking forward to having you in. So, what are we starting with?
Well, we've got a tune. This is actually quite a rarity in the jazz world, but we've got a tune which has an English name and a Japanese name. It's called Ugetsu, which in English is fantasy. But the English name actually is fantasy in D because it's in D major, which is important information if you speak English, but obviously irrelevant if you speak Japanese.
Okay.
Ugetsu.
Take it away. Thank you.
tune by Cedar Walton, Ugetsu. We're actually going to play an original now. It's buried in my ream of charts. The reason it's here is because we have... I don't know if any of you remember, this is the time 2019. Do you remember that year? It's a very nice year. Relatively uneventful, considering recent times, but our little band, the Poet Trio, recorded an album, which, how surprising that I should have the very thing we have. Surely there's some kind of crossover between whiskey drinkers and vinyl record lovers. Maybe not. I don't know. But we made a record, as in the old school vinyl record, of our music, and this is an original tune. This one's called Turkey. If any of you know the common brush turkey, which is prevalent in Sydney and most parts of Australia. It's something that it's surprising where you'd find such a large bird. You know, it's basically a skinny turkey, but you know, I live in the middle of the city and I see them all the time. All the time, there's turkeys all over the middle of Sydney. If you see them too, there is an app that you can report them. I mean, not, you're not reporting them negatively. It's actually quite positive. It's a beautiful space.
We're talking about bin chickens, aren't we?
Reporting out. But anyway.
All right.
Back to the music. This is Turkey. One, two, three. we're gonna take a little down tempo number. This one's called Dear Ruth. This is actually another Cedar Walton tune. Lovely old song. One, two, three.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pocket Trio. How good are these guys? Thank you so much, guys. This has been the most amazing evening of music, and our members have utterly enjoyed it with so many comments and chat coming through on the stream. So thank you again. It's almost weird to do a virtual gig sometimes, but I think it's pays off, and I really thank you guys for actually being part of Virtual Pub 22 this year. So
having a great time. Thanks for having us.
and there's the link for everyone wanting to see thepockettrio.com. Check them out online. Check out their music. Their originals are incredible, and they've worked with the Society a few times now, and hopefully more in future as well. We'd love to have you at some of our in-person gigs as well as more virtual ones to come. So thank you again.
Great. We'd love to come back.
Awesome. Well, round of applause in the comments for Pocket Trio, and we're going to jump over to our next guest. But thank you guys so much for being part of Virtual Pub. Members appreciate it. I appreciate it, and it means a lot to us. So have a great weekend, and thank you again.
Thank you.
What a trio! Seriously, guys, how good is that? I'm just gonna bump that stream for a second and even this out a bit. Here we go. Pocket Trio, thepockettrio.com. Check them out online. They are an amazing band. We've worked with them at Sydney Steps before. They're a Sydney-based band, and probably personally my favorite, only because stylistically my favorite band we've had in the stream in some time. So thanks guys so much again. I'm almost lost for words because it's so calming, it's so mellow, and just to jump back into live again after that's so good. We've got our next special guest joining us for our third dram. 137.12 is the code on this one. Adrenaline Rush. I'm going to bring up the photo in just a second so you can see what it's all about here. There he is. This stunning gentleman is joining us. And of course, all of our press photos were taken pre-COVID. So if we all look a bit weathered and worn since our photos, mine's the same. I'm not going to make any comment on Will's because Will is always a magnificent gentleman and is the commercial director for Bladnoch Distillery, a distillery that is in Scotland, in the lowlands of Scotland, but is owned and managed by an Australian team. It's a pretty unique scenario to be in, and we've got a great relationship with the distillery, which might be known to some of you as Distillery 50. I couldn't possibly comment on that, but Mr. Will Pitchforth, welcome back to the Society stream, I should say.
Hey, Matt. Thanks very much for having me. And
yeah.
Great. I just sort of joined in for the trio, and it's a pretty kind of relaxing way to be rounding out a Friday night. So
absolutely, yeah. And I seriously meant what I said. Like, I'm lost for words with just their sound and just how how calming and wonderful it is to have them in Virtual Pub. So, but thank you so much for joining us for this late session, I guess.
No problems.
We've been going for some hours now, and we had a bit of a technical hiccup before, which I'm still frustrated about. I'm still irate about, but I'm not letting it get to me. I'm a consummate professional. I have a glass ready, and we have a dram ready. I deliberately picked out this whiskey, 137.12, to taste with you in particular, because I like throwing curveballs at people. And there it is. You can see the full size bottle here. This one is not yet available. The first two whiskeys we tasted tonight are. This one, however, we've popped a few sneaky bottles online in case anyone wants to grab one.
You changed the name of it, Matt. My bottle says this one's called Adrenaline Rush.
It is actually called Adrenaline Rush. I want to apologize. Okay, I'm going to tell a little story here just to make sense of things here. Sometimes bottles have to get renamed for different markets, particularly our American friends, where if you put the words Adrenaline Rush on a label, it probably won't pass the TTB.
The old cola.
It'll say that. Yeah, it'll say, it's like, oh well, it'll give you an actual adrenaline rush by drinking this whiskey, and we have to say no, it won't. It's whiskey. Just calm down. But yeah, so we had to give it a new name, but we get to enjoy it as Adrenaline Rush tonight. So, and I like throwing this curveball at you because let's talk about Bladnoch for a second. You guys aren't exactly known. Well, let's say the lowlands are not exactly known for big peated whiskies.
No, look, definitely not. And it's one of the I say that, but then you look back at some of the history of the lowlands, and especially with Bladnoch, and back in the day, we're making a lot of malt for Bell's and some other big, other big blends. And there's actually a heck of a lot of peated whiskey that was made, out of Bladnoch and out of some of the lowland distilleries, because so many of the distilleries down where we are were kind of the workhorse distilleries that were producing spirit for the blends. So it was sort of a lot of it was built to order because it wasn't really being consumed as a malt, and that meant there was actually still a relatively decent amount of peated whiskey being made. And Bladnoch has made peated whiskey over the years and varying forms, and even the previous owners prior to when we took over in 2015, left us a few select peated barrels, and we bottled one of them last year as a peated Bladnock single cask, which only 200 bottles, so definitely one to cherish because there's not much of it, and it's never going to be our main our main bread and butter. But it's always nice to to push the boat a little bit and try something new and see how that really light spirit character from our stills combines with some some moderately peated underlying malt. So
yeah, and I think it's fair to say that you're I think this is a large part of the fact that the team for Bladnock, including yourself, and is based in Australia, has developed this sort of almost, and I mean this in the best way, like almost like a cult-like following of Bladnock in Australia. Like it's a good thing. It's fantastic. I mean, it's surely this is now a key market for the spirit as well.
Look, Australia is always a good whiskey market. Often sort of top 10 or top 20, depending on what database you look at in terms of the consumption of whiskey. But we've got quite a passionate group of whiskey lovers that do make up Australia, and there's lots of events, and you've got the Australian Whiskey Awards coming up, and there's lots of things that kind of show that there's more than just sort of a passing interest in discovering new malts. And I think that honestly it's mirrored the rise of the Australian whiskey industry in terms of domestic whiskey production, and that's kind of caught everybody up. And whether it's American malts or Scotch or even English malts, there's a real willingness to experiment in Australian consumers, and they're willing to take a bit of a punt. Some markets, especially we find in Asia or even in Western Europe, they want reliable, they want brands they know, they want something that's quite safe. Australians are willing to give something a bit of a go, and it makes them quite good for trying new things and working on innovation, that kind of stuff. And that's great for a small distillery like us who hasn't got the big brand power. We can try something new, and like you say, our loyal Bladnock fans will get on board and go with it. And again, like I say, you see it in the Australian whiskey industry. They'll jump on a release or someone that's new or someone's got a bit of an idea, and it's actually quite they're quite supportive of people taking some risks.
Yeah, awesome. Some great comments coming in saying both David Longmore, David saying here, love the Bladnock. Yes, good to hear. And upon nosing this whiskey, have you poured this one out yet, Will?
I have, actually. Yeah, I just poured it out. And you know what? The first time I tried 137 was actually when it was released with the Whiskey Club. And that was back in 2018. And it was just before we released our first Whiskey Club. And so, of course, I joined the Whiskey Club. And the first bottle I got was actually from 137.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And actually, I think it was even a peated 137 as well, possibly. I can't recall.
Maybe lightly peated, yeah. This one's a little bit heavier. And also at 63.2% will put hairs on your chest. We want to throw a bit of a curveball for the third round of this sort of virtual pub pack of a peated English whiskey. And I've, like I said before about how some people are code hunters and it's best to focus in on flavor and tasting note. I say the same with peated whiskey. People often see peated whiskies from Islay and say, oh, I've got to get those. But then they skip over things like Highland or even other countries' peated whiskies, peated whiskies from England, peated whiskies from India, peated whiskies from Australia. There's just fascinating spirit being made across the world, peated or unpeated, of course.
I think that there's still some more runway for Australian peated whiskies. I haven't seen too much in that that peat space, and it's it can be tricky to do, and peat's not exactly abundant in Australia. So they're buying peated malt or they having to source it from overseas, and so I think it'll be interesting to see what some of that the Australian character of spirit combined with the the different malt origins of peat to see what they can do. But I know there are a few experiments around the place. People are trialing different things with different flavors, and some of those real mavericks in the Australian whiskey industry are definitely discovering peat. But you're absolutely right. The kind of days where peat equals Islay is definitely it's definitely moving on. People are trying peated whiskey because they love the flavor as opposed to just being fixed on a region. And even if you see a lot of the new lowland distilleries trying all sorts of things, and Annandale, for example, not far from us, their first two releases were a heavily peated and an unpeated. Man of Words, Man of Swords were their first releases down there at Annandale when they restarted it. And you talk to those guys there, and again, that's paying homage to the style of whiskey that was being made back in the early 19th century.
Yeah. Do you see much of that sort of? Do you see much use or value in that sort of throwback sort of thing going on, or are you more interested in what they can create new?
Look, I think just because it throws back doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But I think that you see in the cocktail culture, there's this real like wistful nostalgia towards drinks that have got a bit of history to it, and there's this real love for prohibition drinks, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want this very spirit forward kind of flavor drinks with little like bitter modifiers and things like that. And doesn't necessarily mean that they're great drinks, but there is the nostalgia. But I think that when looking backwards to whiskey styles or whiskey making techniques, then it makes a great tasting product, and it can be fantastic. But I'm not a big believer in like just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. And I think that some of the distilleries like Ardnamurchan or Nick Nean are doing some really cool and different stuff that their feet are firmly moving forwards, and they're like, okay, well, where can we push this whiskey making? Or even Waterford over in Ireland, they're love it or hate it what they're doing, at least they're doing something that's quite different. So I don't think you can be entirely bound by looking backwards.
No, and it's almost foolish to do so. That's evolving, that beast. It's a first fill 9-year-old, 63.2%. We've only got 42 bottles in the country. We've popped 12 of those online now, just in case anyone on Virtual Pub tonight we did want to grab any of those, but we're keeping that kind of quiet at the moment because we'll do a full release of this a little bit later down the track. But
I like phenolic anticipation, even though it's the US label, because the nose doesn't have that same like phenolic. So it's like, you're expecting it, okay, it's peated, and you're like, oh yeah, where's it coming? And then, it hits you much further back, and again, you compare it to an Isla whiskey and some of these really heavily peated ones, and it's like, you crack the bottle and someone in the next room is like, oh, you've opened a bottle of Isla, whereas this one, comes further along the tasting experience.
Yeah. That's a lot of fun. That's it's not what I expected at all, to be honest. It's far drier. People talking about the previous whiskey 48.132 being quite dry on the finish. This one's almost quite dry on the nose and palate.
48 is used again like really heavily in blends, isn't it? It's a distillery that they're not commonly seen in a single malt form. So I'm definitely looking forward to having a bit more play with that one. I've tried a couple of 48 in the OBs, but I've got a funny story actually for you about labels, because as you know, I do all the export different markets, and the US is always an exciting one. So we're having this big battle at the moment because the TTB, which is the like label approvers in the US, have decided that you can't put natural color on the label on a whiskey label. And you're going, and they said, no, natural color means that you've added color to it. I'm like, it actually means completely the opposite. And they're like, it's forbidden to put natural color on Scotch whiskey. I'm like, I know a gentleman from the Isle of Man with a flat cap named Ralphie who has some extremely strong words about about that assertion. And they're putting their feet in. They're saying right now you can't put natural color on labels anymore. You have to put there's been no color added to this whiskey, and that's they're so sort of almost random in their rulings, and you get labels that work everywhere else in the world, but it seems the Americans can't understand them. It's just completely crazy that we're kind of at the whim of these guys. And I mean, imagine we only release a handful of whiskeys compared to you guys. I can't imagine the hoops you've got to jump through to get colas. In fact, when I search the database, it's always SMWS is like half of the applications with so many whiskeys. It's always like rejected, suspended, withdrawn, because you put something cheeky on it and they're like, oh, I can't do it.
It's our colorful and unique naming system that causes all sorts of troubles, I'm sure. One of my favorites was Witchcraft. It was a 7.214 or something with a code on it. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a heavily sherried whiskey from Distillery 7, and it was called Witchcraft. And it got blocked over there because it might prove that it could the spirit could provide the spirit of the occult, and you might learn witchcraft from drinking this amazing liquid. I love it. It's all sorts of funny things, and we'll have a bit of fun with the US branch on that kind of things. But There's some great tasting notes coming through from members on this whiskey. What an interesting and intense spirit, says David. Gilks, sharp, burnt rubber, phenols, a hint of seaweed alongside sweet, underlying biscuitiness in the mid palate, and finishes super dry. Yeah. And of course, could always pull a mit farb stuff. Talking about the German way of explaining color. There you go.
Yeah. Just don't write caramel, put Mitfarbstoff, and then no one will ever know. Yeah, so
keep that one quiet. Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit of a look. It's a funny one, and labels always give us such a headache because you think that whiskey's whiskey, but there are some markets where it's like if you don't put this in, then people will be totally confused. They might think that it's orange juice if you don't put these particular words on. So.
Yeah.
As I say, some of your ones with when you're talking about sweet flavors or foods or candy, I can imagine they have a field day going, you can't put, cream cake on it because there's no cream cake in it.
There's no cream cake in that bottle.
That being said, I've got a bottle of a whiskey that I got just out of pure curiosity called Virginia Black, which is made by Drake.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
In the very loosest of possible terms. And, I think that he's lent his name to it, but on the back it says in big letters, "This is not made in Virginia." And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. It's
just really making sure this is not made in Virginia. Yeah,
you need to put a little asterisk on every SMWS labeling asterisk. This is not actually made of cake. It's just a tasting note.
It is still whiskey inside the bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking forward to this year with Bladnoch. Is there anything that you can sort of tell us? I mean, all I know that so far is that we've got a great relationship with the distillery, and we're looking forward to some. All I'll say is 50s coming through in the pipeline, which would be good. But in the meantime, tell us what's happening at the distillery. What's the plans for the next year or so?
Well, you're absolutely right. Everything going great with the society. We're actually coming up, I think, to 3 years since we sold the first casks to the SMWS, which should be it's a bit of a milestone. I think it's probably a little bit undercooked to release as 3-year-olds, but great that now you've got actual whiskey in stock of our casks.
Yeah.
We're just about to start the peated fillings. So, again, we are making peated whiskey.
Yeah.
We only make it for a few weeks a year, and that starts next week. So visitors to the distillery get to walk through and have this kind of a wonderful complex smell as they walk through the still house. So those casks are getting filled. It's a funny year because there's all these problems with with shipping and so forth that affects all our supply chain, but it affects casks as well. And interestingly, what it's meaning is that we're switching where we traditionally do a lot of first fill bourbons, gives a lot of options in the future. Now we're reaching out to our contacts in Europe, and there's going to be a lot more different sherries and fortifieds and kind of European casks, and that we probably haven't explored as much as we will this year. So the profiles of Bladnoch's filled in 2022 are going to be with a lot more interesting sherries, and that's maybe it's going to be a happy accident that come 5-10 years time they're going to go, oh, this was a bit of a blip where there was a completely different set of casks that have been laid down. But in terms of this year, there's our usual release of single casks that we put out, 6 single casks every year, and they'll come out in May. And just seen the list of casks that's going to entail. There's going to be some cool maturation in those ones. We've got a very famous Waterfall edition, which is the distillery only bottling that we can line up at 6 o'clock in the morning to grab a bottle of, and so that one will come out in May as well. And that's going to be a nice one, and that's always a pretty exciting day at the distillery for that release. I'm going to put on like a mini festival and put some music on and things like that, because last couple of years it's always like a bit stop start whether we can open or close, and people being on furlough. So we're really hoping that this is the year where we can really sort of lean into it and launch our products and do all the things that we want to over at the distillery. And I'm hoping to get over there myself. Aren't
we all? We're all itching to get back, and
I want to see.
Get back over to Scotland, of course. Yeah. Really appreciate your time, Will. I won't hold you up. We've all got you've got a Friday night in Queensland, and really appreciate it. It's fascinating to be able to talk to someone who, commercially directs the distillery in Scotland, but from Australia.
Oh, thanks very much, and look, hoping that I can make it to an actual, not virtual pub, but an actual pub where we can have some drinks together. I'm actually going to Melbourne next week, first time about 7 or 8 months, and yeah, last time I was there, they were about to be plunged into lockdown, so I'm not gonna jinx it and say that it's going to be a good trip down there and check out some of the bars. So
yeah, absolutely, that'd be fantastic, and of course, hit me up and let's go to the actual pub. You know how it goes.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Good to run into you at the pub, and I will catch you soon. Will Pitchforth from Bladnock. Huge shout out to this guy for joining us tonight for the tasting of 137.12 Adrenaline Rush. That is definitely a curveball that I wanted to throw at him to see how someone who definitely manages a lowland distillery tastes some wild English peated whiskey. Unintentional, but good fun. Our last guests for this evening to round out Virtual Pub for tonight. Of course, I'm going to bring back in Andrew Durbridge, our cellar master, who is going to join us in a really great chat with our super special guest tuning in from the UK tonight. Let me just grab some of these comments coming through before I do that. Michael Seagrave, good to see you. Good to see so many people still tuned in right now. I'm going to bring in, of course, the editor of Unfiltered and, of course, our head of content. This guy has spoken to more people in the whiskey industry than I have had hot dinners, and knows the ins and outs of it all, and is the absolute beacon of content and good energy over at the Society. Let me bring in, of course, AD on my right, and Mr. Richard Goslin on here for the welcome to the stream, and hello over to the UK.
Hey Matt, how you doing? Great to be part of things. I've been enjoying the session. Lovely to catch up. Good to see you too, Andrew. It's been a while.
It's been Richard. I think we last had lunch together at the Vaults in 2017 was the last time we caught up. So
yeah, man, it's been a while. We need to get back over.
Oh, I've been trying. This annoying little bug keeps on getting in the way.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Nice to see the uniform on tonight, Matt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, rocking the monogram. Yes. Good.
Sorry, I've got my Society boxer shorts on. So,
are you also modelling them for us, Andrew, for the new catalogue, or
that's in the next edition of Unfiltered? You can look for that one.
Oh, steady on.
So, how's things, Rich? How's life? How's Unfiltered? How's everything going?
Yeah, I mean, it's going really well, Matt. I mean, from my point of view, like, you know, lockdown hit and it was like, okay, how do we produce a magazine where we can't go anywhere? We can't visit distilleries. We can't go out and get photography to the same standard we were able to do before. We'd just been up on Rassie like a week or so before lockdown, had a brilliant trip up to the distillery at Rassie, which is just one of the most sensational places and a brilliant little distillery. And, you know, I remember like standing outside the distillery in the evening with Alistair Day, distillery co-founder, having a whiskey under the stars, looking across the Isle of Skye. And it was magical, totally magical. And then about a week later, of course, we were in lockdown and it was like, okay, that's not going to happen again for a while. So what do? We kind of pivoted, I suppose, because we started to do a digital monthly magazine.
Yeah.
And the idea was to bring members more content more of the time. We did take away the print issue, and mixed feelings about that. But it meant that we were continually creating content, and then also bringing in the live stream aspect, like you guys have been doing down there, to get members into a virtual pub environment. Lots of music, pub quizzes, same kind of format you've been doing. And that was brilliant because it really did engage people who weren't able to get out and about, and even people who, lockdown or not, they might not have been able to go to a member's room because they were far away, and they were able to join in the virtual pub and feel part of things. Yeah. So there was leaps and bounds, I think, in terms of the kind of digital environment that we embraced, and I think those have been really positive. Delighted to say we did get some print, a kind of best of Unfiltered out at the end of last year, which kind of wrapped up some of the best features that I thought we'd done in a digital format. So we we got our print back, and I'm delighted about that. And hopefully we'll see more of that. I don't know if you guys have had that out down there yet, but
It's just arrived. Actually, my parcel of them arrived yesterday. In fact.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I hope you get some good reading out of that. It's pretty chunky, and I'm an old hack. I grew up working in newspapers. I'm a print guy, so I'm looking for this balance, I think, between a digital world and a print world, and hopefully we can find the right balance, and keep members entertained and stimulated and informed, and everything else. So yeah, there's been ups and downs, but we're just trying to do the best we can, and keep members entertained and on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited by this sort of like a best of 2021 sort of edition we've just printed locally for members as well, and that'll be going out with March Outturn for those who are watching along. Is that something you mentioned? I mean, I'm a bit like you. I came from a bit of a publishing background myself, and I love the print copies. I love the digital monthly. That's great. But there's something about the tangible coffee table almost sort of publication that you can dig into, almost like the best of 2021. Is that something we can expect to see ongoing, hopefully, then?
Yeah, definitely, Matt. I mean, I think it's essential that we put something tangible out, as you say, and if it means doing like a really chunky best of the year issue, then hopefully we've set a good precedent. Certainly it's been very well received over here amongst members and elsewhere that I've heard from around the world. So absolutely, I'd like to think it's set a precedent, and I realize not everyone loves reading digital publications, but hopefully this is 70 odd pages, I think 78 pages, the magazine, so it's pretty chunky, and it can capture a lot of the kind of best features that we've been doing. So hopefully there will be more. I would absolutely expect to see more of that.
Fantastic. There's a question from a member here who Darren in Queensland asks, has Richard found that like here, Scotland has unlocked a market that never existed pre-COVID? Are your customers who live outside normal visiting range to rooms?
You mean members who might not have joined up before because they couldn't get to a members room? Is that the idea?
Because they're too far from a venue, perhaps. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, our membership numbers have been really, really good, despite people not being able to get out and about. And I think there have been a lot of people who aren't particularly close to a members room, and it's not, it's just not feasible for them to get there unless they make a really special journey. So as far as I know, that has been the case, and that kind of digital environment has really helped to bring people on board. I mean, I'm sure it's the same with you, Matt, when you're doing your live streams. It's kind of hard to believe where people are tuning in from. Yeah. And the one that sticks in my mind is I got a comment one night in one of our virtual pubs from a guy on a submarine in the Baltic Sea. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. We're reaching a different audience. I don't know if he signed up to become a member or if he's stuck in a submarine, but it was nice to hear from him.
You've already had enough postal issues in the last sort of 12 months with Brexit, so I can't imagine how the postman's going to bring bottles to the submarine.
Could be a challenge.
Yeah, could be a challenge. I think for us, a lot of it has been our sort of our sample sets and our monthly virtuals. Because Andrew and I have been hosting a monthly virtual with 5 or 6 grams in each pack, and it's an opportunity for members to taste previews and current releases of saying, hey, look, there's great whiskey here, and if you live in northern Queensland or inner Western Australia or something, you can grab one of these packs and join in. And that's been part of the rather than waiting for a tasting to happen in an area where there's 4 members in the whole area or something.
I think
it's crazy actually when you think back that we didn't think about doing these things before lockdown. It took a global pandemic to think, maybe we could do these virtual tastings and send out these tasting packs to anyone, anywhere who wants to join in. So, there definitely have been some positive things to come out of this. My feeling is we can't let these positive things slip away altogether. once we do get back to whatever normality is, and we're able to travel more freely and get to the pub, and obviously, you know, we want to have real life, but you know, there are positives and advantages to doing these kind of tastings online, and then even just the entertainment. You know, I don't think it's always for the society about saying you need to buy this pack and we're going to go through 5 whiskies and talk about them one by one. You know, people enjoy the chat whether they're buying a pack or not, and I think it's really good to mix these things up and deliver all these kind of options: virtual tastings, virtual pubs, digital publications, print publications, podcasts, you know, you name it. We should be all over it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you just touched on the end there, you're talking about we've got to find that balance between, you know, digital and old copy print magazines, and I think we'll see the same with certainly for the society events, you know, just mixing. When we go back to having live events all the time, and we had this discussion a while ago in-house, but you know, we're not going to drop virtual tastings because some people really appreciate them, and for a lot of members, that's their contact with us because they can't get into this, you know, the big cities for the big events.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we've got great members rooms, as you well know, the 4 members rooms now across the UK. But you know, we've got a massive international membership, and it's not realistic for them to visit there. So we need to find a way to kind of bring those members' rooms, or that experience at least, to our international members. I know you did a nice piece, Matt, before with Gregor at the Vaults, giving you a wee tour, and you know, that kind of thing I think is fantastic to show members who can't travel what we're all about. And you know, we've got 4 places there, so there's a lot to discover even virtually if you can't travel there yourself.
I think we're all itching to see Glasgow, especially because I know there's a couple of Australian members who have seen it, who got there just as it opened before the pandemic hit, sort of thing. And but yeah, none of us have yet.
Well, I'm biased because I'm a Glasgow boy. I live in Glasgow, so I was so delighted that finally the society opened up a place in Glasgow. I'm heading in there as soon as we wrap up. I'm jumping on my bike and dashing in.
Nice.
It's a brilliant space. You know, each of the members' rooms obviously has its own feel. They've all got
their own personality. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And Glasgow's got its own personality as well. The staff are brilliant. You always get a warm welcome, and it's just magic to have a place on this side of the central belt in Scotland. You know, so yeah, you know, you get the Vaults and Queen Street, both brilliant locations. But Glasgow brings a different dynamic, a different crowd, different feel, lots of music going on in Glasgow, but a brilliant team there. And yeah, if you get the chance to travel to Scotland whenever that's possible, of course, spiritual home of the Vaults, you've got to tick that one off. Queen Street is also just a beautiful venue with a totally different feel, but you've got to come to Glasgow. Glasgow's just the best city in Scotland. I mean, there's no question about it. Don't let any of these Edinburgh people tell you otherwise.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I was about to say. Actually, one thing I've found really interesting is seeing the personality of Queen Street change. I think if you look at what Queen Street set out to when it was first created, it had a place, and it's morphed a long way from that. And you know, it's now had we're on second renovation and reworking things that I think personalities are living, breathing things as well. But
the buildings have their own personality as well. I mean, you couldn't get much more different from the Vaults, which is basically medieval, and Queen Street, which is Georgian. So that they span totally different eras, and the buildings tell very different stories. You know, we're talking about content. We had Leslie Hills, the ex-wife of Society founder Pip Hills, wrote a brilliant in-depth piece about the story in the stones of Queen Street, and you dig into the story of the new town in Edinburgh and the various people who have lived and worked in 28 Queen Street over the past 200 years or so, more than 200 years. And you know, it's astonishing. So she did a great piece on that, which is online. And then the vaults, you know, you're talking about the monks bringing in wine and storing it in the cellars, which still exist underneath the vaults. You know, the most recent extension of the vaults was like in the 17th century. That was like, you know, that was the new part of the building. So these buildings have got amazing history, even by Scottish standards, they've got amazing history.
I love that history of the vaults. When I remember walking through what was at the time where the marketing team were working, and I think they've moved now, but it was, and I looked at this frieze on the wall, and I said, "Oh, that's kind of cool looking. What year is that?" And I think it was Laura at the time saying, "Oh, I think it's like 1632 or something." And it's just this thing that's embedded in the wall. That's like, yeah, we don't even look at that. It's just like that's just part of the wall. Oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like,
it's absolutely crazy. So but just loads of history, loads of good stories. But yeah, these buildings have their own feel, and yeah, lovely to have Glasgow as well, which is a basement bar. It's a totally different vibe, but also an old building. But it feels very discreet, and just different vibe altogether. But that's the nice thing; they're all different.
Just thinking with Unfiltered, you must be really excited when you sit down for each edition and you know, plan the stories with the massive growth in new distilleries in Scotland at the moment. You've got years of material ahead of you, just telling the stories of new distilleries being established, old ones that were mothballed or closed coming back to life again. It's ripe for the picking.
Well, I mean, I started working with Unfiltered in 2009. I think it was the second issue where I was part of the company that had just taken on the contract to help produce Unfiltered at the end of 2008, when it was relaunched as a glossy, you know, 34-page magazine, 36-page magazine. And back then it was like a totally different world, really, in the whiskey industry. You know, things were not particularly great. There wasn't a lot going on. As you say, Andrew, there was distilleries that were mothballed at the time or looked like they were going to give up the ghost. And I always come back to Glen Scotia as an example of that, because one of my first trips was down to Campbelltown to visit Springbank. And we went down to Glen Scotia, and honestly, I thought it was a derelict, abandoned building from the outside.
I went there for the first time in 2008, and you're absolutely right. It was morbid building, and yeah,
you just thought there's no chance this place is going to carry on. And then you go back 10 years later, whatever, and it's astonishing how it's come back to life, and the TLC that it's had, and the fantastic spirit that it produces. And it's kind of that illustrates the kind of industry for me. There's been so much going on that it's been a great time to be part of, you know, whiskey journalism, because as you say, there's so much happening, so many new distilleries. You know, you're never short of something to talk about. You know, we were down at Bladnoch there fairly recently. Well, recently I say maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, to see how it had come back to life. And it's another good example of a place where, as Ian McMillan, who was brought in as the master distiller, explained at the time, you could basically punch your hand through the copper and the stills. I mean, the place was done, and they had to rip it all out and start from scratch. But here we are, back to life and doing great stuff. And that, again, is kind of symptomatic of the wider industry. Places being refurbished, restored. We've got Rosebank, and we got a lovely sneak peek inside Rosebank from one of our regular photographers who managed to get in there in its refurbished condition and captured the place. I mean, again, that's a set of pictures you should really see online to see this decrepit, abandoned distillery, and it's going to come back to life. So yeah, there's so much going on, and it feels genuinely exciting. Because there's such a variety of projects, from, you know, tiny little distilleries to big projects, but also like across the length and breadth of the country. Rassie's a good example. and there's other distilleries coming up that you keep an eye on. You know, when can we get out there and actually see something? So it's fantastic, and also to have had the experience of seeing distilleries as they're being built, and then going back and seeing them as the finished deal where they're making the whiskey. And we're heading up to Glenwithis is a good example. We'll get up there next month. You know, they've produced the 3-year-old now, and I remember doing the North Coast 500, and we stopped off at Glenwithis on the way back down the northeast coast of Scotland, and it was a building, and they were walking around with bits of pipe and starting to join things together, and we captured that at that moment, and here it is. You know, it's produced its first whiskey. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it's great to kind of witness this growth and development and positive stuff happening across the country. So yeah, nice to be part of it. There's always something to write about.
Very cool. Right at the coalface of it as well. That's just amazing, because you get to write about it and actually document what's happening there.
Can I ask a cheeky question?
It's privileged. It really is, and I need to remind myself that it's a privileged position. There's a funny thing in Scotland where, you know, we often don't appreciate what we have on what we create, what we produce in our own country, and it sometimes takes an international perspective for us to kind of say, oh, wait a minute, this is pretty special. And whiskey is a good example of that, where, you know, we grow up in Scotland, we don't really think, or certainly I didn't think that much about whiskey, but when you get that international perspective, then you realize, oh, wait, this is actually pretty cool. So it's nice to celebrate it and send good messages around the world.
Can I ask a cheeky question? Do you keep an eye on the competition? And I use that word loosely because I don't think Unfiltered has competition. I think your street's ahead of everyone else. But there are other whiskey magazines, so to speak, and publications. Do you keep an eye on the space and what others are doing? And do you feel does one entity influence the other and so on?
Yeah, it's a good question, Andrew. I do keep an eye on the competition to a certain extent, but I feel that what we're offering is fundamentally different from other specialist whiskey magazines. You know, anyone can write a feature about a distillery, and let's face it, there's only so much you can say about the workings of a distillery. You know, it's basically the same stats, the same numbers, regardless of what publication it goes into. Obviously, there's a style of photography and there's a language that you use, but it's fundamentally the same thing. But what sets Unfiltered and the content that we produce at the Society apart, I think, is what makes the Society different. It's based on our membership, and it's telling different stories, which just wouldn't fit into other whiskey magazines that I happen to read. And I think that's kind of what I enjoy as much as the distillery stories. I really enjoy the member stories and the kind of more those kind of like intangible links between people and whiskey. You're always looking for a peg between the person and the society or the whiskey. But, you know, there's lots to explore there, which I think as a members club, as a society, we really enjoy exploring. So I think, yeah, that's kind of where I like to expand what it is we do to bring in the members as much as possible. And, you know, I'm always delighted to hear from members who have some interesting stuff going on, which is whiskey related, that we can kind of explore and in some way demonstrate their passion for the whiskey, but, you know, broaden it out to show what a kind of diverse membership we have, what a crazy bunch of people are attracted to the society, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and you know, you're not going to read that in other magazines. So for me, a lot of it is about celebrating the membership and also that international community that we have, you know, across all the branches of the society. So yeah, I think that there's competition to some extent, but, you know, we're first and foremost for the members of the society. So that makes us kind of fundamentally different.
Great comment here from Dan. It says, one of the things I've noticed since joining the society is the focus on people. I love that. And that echoes your sort of statement just there, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for crazy members who are doing interesting stuff. And, you know, with the latest issue that we've got out, just dropped today online, is a guy in Leith, just around the corner from the vaults. And he's like one of the best Ducati mechanics in the world. And he's doing a tasting in his workshop, I think in April, a guy called Tyler Lunsford. And, you know, he loves his society whiskey, especially his smoky beasts, you know, something a bit grubbier, which you'd totally associate with a workshop. So, you know, he's got this twin passion for motorbikes, Ducatis specifically, and for society whiskey. So you're just like, what's not to love about that? You know, get some brilliant photography, which we have, and get into his workshop, get a bit of chat about his passion for the society and for motorbikes. And, you know, I just love bringing those stories to life, and I think it gives us a whole different feel from a drier whiskey magazine, which might just be focused on, you know, how the stuff is produced. And I'm interested, don't get me wrong, I'm interested in how the stuff is produced, but I'm more interested in the people who make it, the places it comes from, the people who drink it, and the kind of passion that they have for the whiskey.
Beautifully said. Couldn't agree more. Richard, thank you so much for your time. I'm guessing you've got to get on your bike shortly and get over to Glasgow.
Yeah, I'm going to scoot. And I didn't even have a dram, Matt. I was all set. I thought I'll have a wee brunch whiskey. Not quite breakfast time, mid-morning.
Yeah, it's about 11:30 right now over there, so it's almost just time for a dram.
Yeah. But I'll scoot into the members room and get a wee dram with my lunch in there.
Fantastic. Andrew, Richard, thank you so much for being part of Virtual Pub for this for Virtual Pub 22. Really appreciate your time, especially Richard. Thank you so much for taking a chunk out of your morning for us this morning.
Really, pleasure, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Fantastic. Andrew, Richard, I'll drop it out now. But thank you so much for both being a part of Virtual Pub, and we'll see you both soon.
Right. See you in Scotland, guys.
See you in Scotland.
Looking forward to it.
Good
Bye
stuff.
for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Virtual Pub. That's where we leave it off. And some great final comments coming in here. Agree about the people that make it. Spent the afternoon at my local distillery. Isn't it just amazing? And thank you so much for all these comments coming in. What an amazing night we've had with Virtual Pub. That's actually the end of Virtual Pub for now. We'll do another Virtual Pub. Don't worry. This is not just the end of it. And thank you to everyone who tuned in, who actually stayed the course and did the whole Virtual Pub with us. I am just going to quickly make mention of what I've said before tonight. Here it is again. There's the advent calendar I'm giving away, a $399 advent calendar I'm giving away for someone who joins up using the hashtag, uses Virtual Pub code on the site. All you need to do is join the society. If you are already a member, of course, I gave away some prizes already. There was Richard tonight, sorry. And there's and Virtual Pub was that's the end of Virtual Pub. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. For being a part of this stream, for being a part of the society, for being members of the society and enjoying the tapestry that the society provides in terms of what I consider the world's best whiskey club. Over and out for now. I'll see you all for a live stream soon. Happy Virtual Pub 22. Hashtag Virtual Pub 22. Put your photos up. Go in the drawer for that hip flask. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all soon. Cheers.